All right, we're live on a Wednesday night, 8 o'clock start, going a little bit earlier than we have in the past. Typically, we've been 8:30 in the past, but we're going at 8 o'clock now. Probably do this, I would say probably do this for the long term. Just stay on this 8 o'clock tip. I'm trying to, if you see me glancing off to the side, I'm trying to get this West Virginia, North Carolina mayonnaise bowl online, but Hulu being Hulu's such a pain in the butt. I'm not going to complain about this, but I'm really like, what am I paying for with this service if I can't get live sports when I want to watch them on Hulu? I mean, like, it's literally the only thing you have to offer me right now. The only reason to pay for any of these streaming services is live sports, and you can't even provide that minimal amount that I need. So thank you, but no thank you. I'd like to watch the mayonnaise bowl, but I am unable to watch it now. So I guess I'll just have to sit here and have the live stream without any distractions off to the side of the screen. And let's be honest, I don't care. We'll bring in Jim in a minute, but like, I mean, the bowl games are just, and we saw it last year and we saw it 2 years ago. It's nothing new, but it's not like you can even watch this and be like, well, I want to get some thoughts on what Carolina and West Virginia will be like next year. Because who even knows? This isn't even, these aren't even teams. This is just like a random collection of guys wearing these uniforms, and you have no idea if they're actually going to be on the team next year. And a lot of the, I guess most of the guys who opted out aren't going to be on the team next year. So you've got that going for you. North Carolina and West Virginia are both on the schedule. I had to double check that before I talked too much about whether I wanted to see North Carolina and West Virginia next year. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's because Pitt's not involved in a bowl game this year, but it's hard to get the ramp up the interest. It shouldn't be. Should still want to watch football and still enjoy it, but it's just hard to ramp up the interest. I'll see if Jim is really interested in bowl games in a second, but you know the deal. It's our live Panther-Lair show here on a Wednesday night, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, so you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. It's not like Hulu. We actually work all the time, and our YouTube channel works all the time. We have morning Pitt videos Monday through Friday. You can watch those every day of the week. We've got these live shows every Wednesday night. We'll do some post-game shows for basketball. We're going to do one after the Syracuse game. On Saturday, Pitt opens ACC play at the Carrier Dome, or at the Dome. I don't even know if it's I forget what they call it. Nothing is what it used to be. So at the Dome on Saturday, they have a noon tip-off, and we'll have a live post-game show after that so that we can talk, and that'll be right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on notifications, you'll get an alert sent to your phone every time we go live. You'll never miss any of our live streams. The post-game show should be fun. Of course, check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source for your Pitt sports news, football, basketball, recruiting. Everything you want to find is right there at Panther-Lair.com, and message boards interact with hundreds and thousands of other Pitt fans all day, every day. Panther-Lair.com. Pittsburgh.rivals.com. That's where the coverage is. And of course, Jim Hammett joins us on the site every day providing content. He joins us here on Wednesday nights. Jim, how many bowl games have you watched this month so far?
Not many.
Yeah.
I'm in like a bowl, like with a buddy, like a pick 'em or whatever. I think that Saturday there was like 7 games, and I lost 5 of them, and that kind of really killed my interest.
So in addition to like Pitt not being in it and players opting out and your own like personal misfortunes, you've just given up on bowl season altogether. What of those factors impacted your interest or lack thereof the most? Pitt not being in, all the opt-outs, or just your, making bad picks?
No, I make bad picks all the time, so that's not going to be an issue. And I apologize. I'm kind of going through a cold, so.
Oh yeah, you sound a little congested. Have you been taking something?
Yeah, we're trying like the Dayquil, NyQuil, but I might have to like step it up, get some cough medicine or something.
All right, you didn't take the NyQuil before we started this, do you?
I mean, I might be asleep by the
end. All right, Jim's going to pass out. All right, I'm going to go to the Chris Gates ad read, and I'm going to come back to you, and your head's going to be down on the desk. But yeah, what I mean, like, did the opt-outs, like this West Virginia North Carolina game, or like the Orange Bowl, right, with Florida State, where there's like 19 guys from Florida State who aren't playing? I mean, does that wane your interest or make your interest wane a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. Like I stopped over, I talked to my dad the other day, and he's like, "Oh, like some of the good teams are going to start playing," and I was like, "Who? Like, what bowl game are you excited for this week?" I mean, that was kind of like my thought process because like Georgia is not Georgia right now. They've had what 12, 13, no, probably more than that guys enter the portal. So like you were saying earlier, it's just kind of guys wearing the uniform. I mean, the one thing that I find interesting is like guys in the portal but still playing for their school.
I like. I don't know. I like that. That's an interesting one. I mean, on one hand, I would expect the players to be like, "I'm not going to do it because I don't want to get hurt." But on the other hand, I mean, like, I don't know. As a fan, let's say if it was Pitt or whatever team, like you were a fan of or you were following, would you be like, "No, man, I don't even want you to play"? I feel like, oh, if you want to play, go ahead. If the coaches are okay with it, if your teammates don't have a problem with it, I think it's fine. I don't know. Do you have an issue with that?
No, not really. And I mean, I think for those guys, it's still kind of like an extra showcase going into the portal. It's like, okay, we know this guy's in the portal. I can watch him. Like if you're, like say if you're like Buddy Mack,
That's true.
who
Yeah.
hasn't played a lot at Pitt, but like if Pitt was in a bowl game and he got a chance to play, I mean, that's a great showcase for him. And so, I mean, I think in that sense, I mean, unless there's like hard feelings and like the team is mad that you're entering the portal. I mean, like if you have like a senior moving on, like I think that's cool. Like, like they get one more chance, they get to finish out the year, but obviously they have opportunities to look elsewhere.
Right. I'm trying to think of guys, Pitt players who went into the portal who, if Pitt was in a bowl game, potentially could have done that, could have showcased themselves. Like Buddy Mack, right? Like he's not going to play much. They have Donovan McMillan, they have Javon McIntyre, they have, PJ O'Brien. Even if Stephon Hall left, it's not like Steph Hall was in the mix. It was a 3-man rotation, Maybe they didn't really have any corners transfer, but corner could have been a spot where a guy could really showcase himself, because you would assume Devonshire, Williams, and Woods I would assume they would opt out. Like Devonshire, I would say probably for sure.
Yeah.
Williams and Woods, I would assume would opt out. I would think. I'm trying to think of a good comparison for last year. Who played? Hallett played last year, right? But Hill did not. Is that right? In the Sun Bowl? So I don't know. Maybe you get one of those two. But I mean, a young corner would get an opportunity to kind of showcase himself. I don't know. I'm looking at the Bowl Challenge Cup on TV right now, and I'm learning the ACC is 3-1. So, but they have 7 bowl games remaining. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why my interest has waned so much. I don't know if it's because like when Pitt, I don't know if it's because Pitt's not involved. Because even if Pitt was playing in like the Duke's Mayo Bowl, it's not like all of a sudden I'd be really compelled by the Holiday Bowl or the Sun Bowl or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe part of it's timing too. I mean, like I was just thinking about this the other day. Signing day was on December 20th. And it's a pretty busy grind up until that point between the offensive coordinator search and then the run up to signing day with the transfers and stuff. And then as soon as signing day ended, I was like, oh, look, Christmas is in like 4 days. Probably should do some things to get ready for that. And so maybe there just wasn't time, but you could always put a bowl game on in the background, but I don't know. Will you watch the playoff games? Will that draw your interest?
Yeah, I'll definitely watch those. And I mean, there's I can't even like say I'm excited for Georgia. Like that's not
Right.
even, it's like just the playoff games.
Right. Like the other New Year's Six, like Missouri, Ohio State. I don't know who's Ohio State's quarterback, right? Because McCord went into the portal. I'm guessing Marvin Harrison's not playing. I don't know. Has he opted out of that game? Do you know?
I just assumed he
Right.
did. I mean, like I flipped on the game earlier and like North Carolina had the ball and I was like, I assume Drake May's not playing. I don't remember seeing it, but like I just assumed he's not playing.
Like, yeah, you can I assume anybody good doesn't play. So I mean, West Virginia's got a lot of guys still going, it looks like. But yeah, I assume anybody good just isn't playing. So I mean, like New Year's Six, like on Friday. So 2 days from now, you got the Cotton Bowl, Missouri, Ohio State. On Saturday, a Penn State and Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl. Will you watch that one?
Well, of course not, because I'll be watching Pitt-Syracuse basketball.
Oh yeah, that's a noon game. Good point. So then 4:00, you have Georgia, Florida State. I didn't see the time on that game. So Georgia, Florida State at 4:00. We already talked about that. I mean, I don't know. Monday, the Fiesta Bowl, Liberty, Oregon. Are you going to watch Liberty, Oregon at 1:00 on maybe that's New Year's Day. So I might.
Like I still like a New Year's Day bowl game. Like,
right.
You get the pork and sauerkraut in the crock pot and watch some football.
Yeah, there's not much else going on. So I mean, yeah, I probably would.
That's probably the day to do it.
Yeah, I'll watch that one. And then, I mean, everything else in here: Clemson, Kentucky, Oregon State, Notre Dame. Memphis, Iowa State. What's on New Year's? There's nothing on New Year's Eve. I guess because it's a Sunday, right? Yeah, so they're not gonna. Yeah, this is stupid. I mean, the 68 Ventures Bowl. The hell is it? Mobile? Is there still a Birmingham Bowl? Oh yeah, the Birmingham Bowl is the Birmingham Bowl. Yeah, Duke beat Troy. Okay, the 68 Ventures Bowl in Mobile, Alabama.
Well, that's the one that ended in a brawl.
That's right. Yeah, Eastern Michigan, because they can't stop punching people in games, even officials. They can't stop punching. All right. Enough of this. There's actually some good comments and questions. We'll just get to a few of these right off the bat here. Adam Vinchik asks, "What's the deadline for players to transfer in for the spring semester?" So this is actually a good question, Jim, because I don't know if you saw. I just posted about this on the message boards. Because we had like half the information right, and we were talking about it for a while. So the transfer portal opened on December 4th. It closes on January 2nd. So anybody who wants to transfer and enroll at a new school in the spring, they got to be in the portal by January 2nd. And when we say the portal closes, it closes for guys to enter. If you're still in the portal, like say, I announce tomorrow I'm going into the transfer portal. I don't have to be out of the portal. I don't have to pick a new school by January 2nd. I just have to be in by January 2nd. So that's an important distinction. Now, what we kept getting mixed up on and we weren't sure about is like, well, you look at the college football playoffs, the semifinals are on the 1st. So that's cool. But the championship game is on the 8th. So if the portal closes on the 2nd, does that mean that anybody who plays in the championship game, or I think there are even some bowl games after that? We'll bring up this screen of all the bowl games. No, there's no late bowl games this year. There have been in the past. Like the Birmingham Bowl has been after New Year's Day in the past. I feel like it was on like the 7th one year. Yeah. But so the national championship game is on the 8th. The way, apparently the way the transfer portal rule is structured, if you play in a game that's after that January 2nd date, you get 5 days from your game. You get a new 5-day window that you can enter the portal. So if there's a guy playing for, take your pick of Alabama, Michigan, Texas, Washington, one of those 4 teams, and he's thinking about transferring, but he doesn't want to leave before the playoffs. He wants to be a part of a playoff run. It's exciting. You don't want to bail before that. And he goes and his team wins on the 1st. He's not stuck with that team for another year, or at least for the spring, because he missed the close of the portal window on January 2nd. He'll get a 5-day window. The 2 teams in the national championship game, players on those teams will have a new 5-day window that starts after that game. So it runs like 9th through the 13th, I think, that they can go into the portal and still transfer for the spring. That's an important distinction. If you are looking at playoff teams for potential transfer candidates, just because a guy is not in now doesn't mean the story is finished. And just because a guy isn't in by January 2nd doesn't mean the story is finished, because you could still get somebody off of the national championship teams, or the teams that play in the national championship, on January 8th. So I'm glad Adam asked that. That was the very first question. And I think it's an important clarification to make. If we're keeping an eye on playoff teams for potential portal candidates, that's, that window is open. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
Nah, I didn't really know the ins and outs of it, but I guess it makes sense. And and I would expect guys from those teams to enter the portal. I mean, if guys are leaving Georgia and Ohio State, then presumably guys at Michigan and Alabama are going to do the same thing, and that they get that opportunity. So yeah, there's probably some guys not happy with their playing time, but you get pretty sweet bowl merch, and you get to go to a cool place. And
yeah, your team could play for a national championship. You shouldn't have to miss that opportunity. It's weird. It's almost like something from the NCAA that makes sense, to give this extra little window. It's rare. Mm-hmm. We should celebrate those instances where it happens. Great questions all around, though. I'm kind of glancing through here. Like Josh Newark wants to know, what's the best condiment to pour on your body? Jim, since we're watching the Mayo Bowl here, you got a thought on that? I'm not answering.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a good answer to that. And I don't think mayo is the correct answer either.
I don't want to give any kind of indication whether I have or have not ever thought about this before. So I don't want to have an answer to this question at all. So Josh, we'll leave that one to you. Dennis Hurl wants to know, what are your thoughts on the Syracuse game on the road? At first, when I glanced at this question, Jim, I thought he was asking, like, what do you think about the experience of a game at Syracuse? And I've never actually been to a basketball game there. I don't know. Have you? I've gone to like a bunch of football games in that building. Would you assume basketball games are better, cooler in that building?
I mean, it always looks better on TV. The atmosphere looks better. I mean, I was at the last Pitt Syracuse game up there. I mean, fortunately, we got to go to New York City this year, which is a little bit better of a destination than upstate New York. But I would think it's better. Just even from the press box, like I remember being there and just kind of asking someone, I was like, "So what is the setup here?" And I kind of got a feel for it, and it seems like it would be pretty cool.
I forget. Do they even use the same press box, or do they have like a different press area for basketball? How do they explain it to you? Do you remember?
From my understanding is I think you could just be up in that same press box for the
Oh,
basketball.
okay.
Yeah.
But they cut it. But they like cut the building in half, kind of, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. I don't know. I don't hate it for football games. I hate everything about it. I hate like being there. I hate driving there. I hate every part of that experience. But the actual game itself, I kind of like. I think it's a cool kind of atmosphere. Yeah, it's unique, and people can say whatever they want about indoor football, but from our perspective, and I think we've talked about it before, you're closer to the field than any other venue in the ACC. And because it's open air and it's enclosed, it just, I always feel like I can hear and feel the hits more. I feel like it's just louder. It's more impactful. I don't know. I kind of like it, but it just means you have to be in Syracuse, and nobody wants to do that. But just a brief aside as I'm glancing at the Mayonnaise Bowl here that West Virginia is up 27-10. Week 3 of this season, did you think we were watching Pitt play against a 9-win team?
No.
Yeah. If going before the season started, not in week 3, but preseason, and if we had said, hey, when Pitt and West Virginia play, one of those teams is going to be 3-9 and one of them is going to be 9-4. Pretty sure we would not have predicted it to go the way it has ultimately ended up going here. And I don't know. I mean, that's probably a long conversation we could have about why each of these teams ended up where they were. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But boy, North Carolina's quarterback doesn't look very good. I wonder if that's their guy for the future. But anyway, I'm getting distracted here. Have you watched this Colin Harrell, or whatever his name is?
I watched a couple plays, but not enough to have an opinion.
Nothing special. He's only scored 10 points, but it's also like his first start. So anyway, as far as Dennis's question, thoughts on this Syracuse game, I haven't gotten a chance to watch much Syracuse this year. I don't know if you've gotten a much of a look at them. Net rating is 83. So this game on the road would be a quad 2 game if they were able to win it. At least as it's currently set up. Any thoughts on Syracuse? Any insight there of what to expect?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the two teams, I mean, I think it's just, the coaches are different. It's not going to be Jim Boeheim, but it's still Pitt and Syracuse. I mean, it still looks like a normal Syracuse team. I mean, I think they're going to have, ball dominant guards like Judah Mintz and, long shooters like Chris Bell and some really tall guys in the middle. I mean, I don't think they play as much 2-3 zone. I still think it's part of the fabric of the program. But I mean, I don't know. Sometimes when I look at this Pitt team, they kind of remind me of like a Jim Boeheim Syracuse team, just because you have those, a lot of guys that like to shoot and hang on the perimeter and some tall bodies. I mean, Pitt kind of has the look of like one of those good Syracuse teams. So I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of similarities, and it's, I think this is the 125th meeting between the two programs.
Wow.
And
sounds about right.
Since joining the ACC, the series is tied 10-10.
Really? Huh. Kind of surprised by that. But I guess even in the lean years, even in the down years, they could get one against Syracuse every now and then. So this game starts a run of 19 ACC games through the end of the regular season. They're 9-3 right now. I feel like we've talked at various points about, is there a magic number to get into the NCAA tournament? And for the longest time, it was 20. I don't know if that's a guarantee, that you get to 20 wins and you're going to get in. 21, 22 could be a guarantee, but that means going 13-6 over these final 19 games. you see them winning 13 games out of these 19. You see them winning 12, 11, 14, 10. What do you know, how does this, big picture, how does this 19 game stretch look to you?
It's weird because, last year at this time, the team like already started to catch its momentum. Like they kind of already had that like mid-December run. They kind of got hot. I think who did they beat during that stretch? They beat NC State. Then they played Syracuse at about the exact same time last year.
Yeah.
But you kind of started to feel like that team kind of had things figured out, but you don't really get that same sense right now. And I think part of it's because they're kind of tinkering with the lineup a little bit. They kind of looked a little sluggish those 2 games around the holidays. So, I don't really know what to expect heading into Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Yeah, because, they had the Northwestern game and the NC State game. I mean, the NC State game is a big difference between, that and this, and this one has not just a loss to Clemson, which is not a bad loss at all, not just a loss to Florida, which is an okay loss, but they have that loss to Missouri that is probably going to keep looking worse and worse as the season goes on. There are a lot of opportunities. It's interesting looking at, these 19 games as they're ranked right now, as their net ratings are right now. Like 8 out of the 19 games are potential quad 1 games, which seems to me like a lot. I mean, it's like the bulk of the schedule there, and they have another 5 that would be quad 2 games. As it is right now, teams are going to move around, and then they've got the other 6 that are 3 and 4. I think to start, you have to avoid losing any of those quad 3 or quad 4 games, like Syracuse at home, Wake Forest at home, Florida State at home, Notre Dame at home, and then the 2 Louisville games. I think you have to win all 6 of those. You can't have a clunker in there. It's going to be tough against Carolina at home. It's going to be tough in the 2 Duke games. It's going to be tough when you have to go to Clemson. It's going to be tough, Miami and NC State on the road. And these teams, like, those are going to be hard games, and they're going to be a challenge, and you might lose most of them. You might only win like 2 out of those games. But if you can win those 6 real bottom feeder games, I think you give yourself a pretty good chance to get to 20 wins before you even get into the ACC tournament. I think you've got to avoid just laying an egg, because if you can avoid laying an egg, you don't have to win all that many of your really good games and still end up with about 20, 21 wins before the regular season ends, which gives you a chance, I think, to win 1 or 2 in the ACC tournament and pretty much lock yourself in. Like, I think it'd be hard to be left out if you have 23 wins by the end of, conference play, by the time or by the end of the conference tournaments. I think you'd have to be pretty much a lock just on the sheer volume. I mean, volume still counts, right? Volume of wins still counts. Even if your resume is just okay, if you win 22, 23 games, you should be a lock, right?
You should be, but last year's Clemson team is, kind of, I forget how many games they won. They might have had more wins than Pitt, and they got left out last year.
Yeah,
it
sounds
right.
I
thought they were pretty good too, but they just had such a bad non-conference schedule that then everyone kind of devalued the ACC last year because pretty much the entire ACC, the weight of the entire conference is on Duke and Carolina's shoulders. If one of those 2 teams are down or both of them are down, then everyone looks at the conference as bad. And I mean, part of it's true because those are the 2 teams that play the really hard non-conference games, and that's where the net ranking kind of comes up with its whole system. It's like they put a lot of stock in these November games, and whenever Duke loses those games, it's like, okay, well, the ACC's done for the rest of the year, and you're kind of fighting this never-ending net battle. And I kind of remember that last year. That was kind of like the huge storyline. It's like everyone was checking bracketology every day. Everyone was checking net. I mean, Pitt was a game away from winning the ACC, and they got sent to Dayton. So I mean, yeah, I don't know if volume. I don't know if 20 wins is a magic number now. You kind of have to play the computers, right? And sometimes that's out of your hands.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then to that end, if you look at their schedule so far, like they've played 12 games, and 2 of them were quad 1 games. None of them were quad 2, and the other 10 were all quad 3 and quad 4. So like they're getting no help from their non-conference. You know what I mean? They're getting no help from the first 12 games of the season in terms of resume. The only upside is that they didn't lose any of the, quadrant 4 games. And they're 4-1 against quadrant 3. So, I mean, I guess avoiding bad losses, but they have nothing to, give them a a boost from the non-conference. So yeah, we'll see what the ACC ends up being valued at. Right now, I mean, Duke is top 20 in the net rating. UNC is 26. So that's good. Clemson is 12. So I mean, you have 3 teams in the top 26, which speaks well of the ACC. You just need them to stay there. And then I guess if you're Pitt, if you can manage to pull off a win or two, then that'll be, that'll help you. Let's see. Lawrence Nicoletta says, are they looking at any quarterbacks? And we still, I mean, obviously we haven't seen Pitt get a transfer quarterback. We both said a bunch of times we think they will get a transfer quarterback. Probably a decent chance that it's somebody who's not in the transfer portal yet. And that's sort of where we've left it. There's been a lot of internet detective work being done on the message boards. And, we're just kind of sitting back and watching and waiting for somebody, waiting to see if the quarterback Pitt wants goes into the portal. And it's just, well, let's see what happens. I think I would continue to believe, and I assume you feel the same, that they will at least try to get a transfer quarterback to compete with, Christian Bear and Nate Yarnell. But I don't think that guy's out there yet. Has anything changed in your view on that situation?
No, I mean, I still think a quarterback's possible. And I mean, like, it's, the transfer portal, like the bulk of it happened right after the season. But as we watch, like, as teams get eliminated from bowl games, it's like, okay, there's another set of players going to the portal. There's another set. So there's more bowl games. There's more things that are going to happen. So, I mean, I think Pitt is, keeping their options open. And, I think everyone's looking at Cade Bell's Twitter, trying to see who he's following and trying to figure out what he's going to do. But I don't know if the answer's, quite right there. But they're going to get another quarterback. I mean, I think it's kind of inevitable at this point. I mean, I don't think they can roll with the 4 they have. I mean, it's not to say that I don't think Yarnell or Veyer could start next year. I think they just need a third person to come into that room and contend for the job.
Yeah. Wolf HD says, I think Pitt football will be very interesting next year. A lot of returning production and a weak schedule, but also we have no clue what the quarterback could be. A real boom or bust team. I'm somewhat bullish on this team. I mean, we'll talk about it a lot between now and September, or I guess the end of October. But I mean, Kent State, Cincinnati, West Virginia, Youngstown State in the non-conference, Clemson, Louisville stand out on the ACC schedule. Not sure anything else really scares you. Syracuse, Virginia, Cal, BC, SMU, Carolina. I mean, it's a winnable schedule. I mean, I can easily piece together 8 wins out of that schedule with just competent, normal quarterback play, right? I mean, just don't be as bad as you were this year on offense, and, you can get at least 6, 7, 8 wins, I would think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a natural, bounce back for this team. And, we were just talking earlier about, at the start of this year, did we expect West Virginia to go win 8 or 9 games? Not really. Do I think they're a good team because they won 8 or 9 games? Not really. I mean,
yeah.
we've talked before. I mean, it's not that hard in college football to get to 6 or 7 wins with just, doing the things you're supposed to do. So, I mean, I think if Pitt can get on track, and I think if Cade Bell can get this offense working, you're right. I mean, the schedule's there for the taking. I think they have 7 home games to 5 away games. I mean, it sets up pretty well. I mean, I don't think they really even have to leave too far from Pittsburgh in the first month of the season. So, I mean, they have a chance to really, set up well and start well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the only thing that's been announced so far is through September 21st. So they have to go to Cincinnati in week 2. But otherwise, I mean, we'll see what game shows up on September 28th. But it very well could be a home game, and then you're home 4 out of 5 weeks in the first month of the season, and potentially, I mean, with Cincinnati being your one road trip. Now, I don't know if they want to backload it as much as, I mean, because I feel like this year was like that, wasn't it, with a ton of home games early on? I mean, I guess they had to go to West Virginia in week 3.
I feel like we were at the Acrisure Stadium press box a lot in September.
Yeah. I mean,
for a night game.
Morgantown in week 3, but then Carolina the next week. I guess Virginia Tech in week 5, and then Louisville the week. Oh, there was a bye week in there, but still 3 out of the first 5 games, and one of the road games was West Virginia. I guess. Oh, what was unique about this year is they had 5 games in September.
Yeah,
I think because that's the way the schedule worked out, and like 4 out of the 5 were Power 5 opponents. That was what was kind of unique. Is I couldn't remember too many times that they had played 4 Power 5 opponents in the month of September. That was a little bit different, a little bit unique. But yeah, I mean the schedule it doesn't scare you a lot. You go on the road to Boston College, SMU, Louisville, and North Carolina. I mean, I don't really know what to expect from SMU next year. I think they should beat Boston College. Louisville could be a challenge. I don't know about Carolina. I mean, the way they fell off this year, and that was with Drake May. I don't know if they're ready to replace him next year. I don't know. The schedule's just not scary, and you get Clemson at home. I don't know. They should be able to bounce back. I don't think they were as bad as they looked. I think their quarterback play was as bad as it looked. And so, a little bit of positive regression seems like it wouldn't be too much to ask for or too much to expect, I would think. But, I guess we'll find out. Let me see here. What was the next question? Ryan wants to know, do you think we have a good shot at Key Thompson, the linebacker from Ohio? Would be a good starter or a backup? I think they're working on him. I think they're in touch with him. It's interesting that Key Thompson, the linebacker from Ohio University, is still in the portal. But I do think so. It was interesting. I think on signing day, there was an article in the Akron Beacon Journal saying that he was going to Pitt. And so I actually got him on the phone. He's like, no, I'm not. That's not true. I'm not, I'm looking at them, but I'm not making any decision yet. Probably won't make a decision till January or something like that. But he looks like a good player. I mean, he was really productive at Ohio. I think they could use another veteran piece in the linebacker room. I think if they go into the year with just the guys that they have, I think it'll be okay. But adding another veteran guy so you can maybe, just to get a little more experience on the field, I don't think it would be the worst thing. I think they could stand to use him. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look much at Key Thompson, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the linebacker situation, and they initially lost 3 guys to the portal, but then Brandon George decided to change his mind. Then kind of leading up to signing day, I thought they might have lost Jeremiah Marcelin, and he decided to sign. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's like a great need for like a another linebacker in the room with those 2 things kind of falling in their direction, but it doesn't hurt. I mean, we saw a couple of years ago they found Tyler Wiltz out of nowhere, and he ended up being a pretty good player. So I mean, I don't think it hurts to add another linebacker to this room. But I've been talking about it on the boards for weeks, months now that I'm really high on the linebackers. I really think that's a good young group on this roster. And I think signing day only added to that. I think they signed 3 good ones. I think they had 3 pretty good true freshmen who all made an impact, and Kyle Lewis is pretty good. And Solomon DeShields actually was started the year as the linebacker I was kind of most curious about, and he ended up being their best one by the end of the year. So yeah, I think they have some talent. So I mean, I think they should keep their options open for Key Thompson or maybe someone else, but I don't know if I think there's probably more pressing needs.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a necessity. I'm with you. I think all 7 of the guys who are like freshmen or sophomores, whether it's a redshirt sophomore like Kyle Lewis, or the 3 true sophomores, the guys who were freshmen who played this past season, or the 3 freshmen who are coming in. I mean, I think if you can keep all 7 guys on the roster, like not lose any to the portal, I think the arrow, or not the arrow, I think the ceiling is really high for all of them. I think they can all be really good and play together for a while, and make for a really strong linebacking core. I guess the one thing is, I mean, you have Solomon DeShields and Brandon George as seniors, but then you have a drop down to like, Kyle Lewis as a redshirt sophomore and the 3 true sophomores. So you kind of have a gap there in age, a little bit of a gap in experience. I think adding one more experienced guy could really make that group even more solid and more, deeper. So I can see it. I don't think it's a necessity, but I think one of the things the portal allows you to do is fill in some luxury pieces. Like, hey, we can get a little bit better at this spot, or I can get a little bit better at that spot. I don't know if Lyndon Cooper was a necessity as an offensive line addition, but he makes them better. He adds depth and he improves the overall situation. So I think, it's okay to get guys like that because you just feel like, hey, they can make us better. And of course, somebody who can make everybody better is our good friend Chris Gates. The Wednesday Night Live show, as always, is sponsored by Chris Gates Fitness. Chris is an online fitness coach from Pittsburgh. He's a huge Pitt fan. He's excited to announce the coaching applications are set to open up on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. If you've been thinking about setting a New Year's resolution for your health and fitness, this is your opportunity to get on a program that actually works. Chris will help you not only make progress now, but learn how to sustain that progress long term. Pitt fans and especially Panther-Lair listeners are near and dear to Chris, so he's offering a bigger discount to you than anybody else. You get 75% off your first month of coaching. Just mention Panther-Lair when you apply. This is the biggest sale Chris runs each year, and the next one won't be for a while, so mark your calendar for January 3rd and plan to get your application in. You can apply on Chris's website, chrisgatesfitness.com/coaching. Chris works with people all over the world to build muscle, burn fat, and learn about how simple, healthy lifestyle habits can lead to a lifetime of better health and longevity. His coaching philosophy is centered around sustainability and teaching his clients how to make progress in ways that actually fit their lifestyle. He builds personalized programs for each client for both their diet and exercise. Those programs are designed to maximize enjoyment and consistency because if you enjoy it, you'll be more likely to keep showing up and putting in the work. And when you do that, the sky's the limit for how much progress you can make. And Chris is there every step of the way to support his clients. You'll have regular weekly check-ins, customized video tutorials, and you can reach out to Chris any time of the day, any day of the week to get the support you need. So remember that date, January 3rd, 2024. Visit chrisgatesfitness.com/coaching to apply. And on a side note, Chris has actually been sharing some client success stories recently. He's talking about Mike, who's lost 25 pounds, Jim, who's down 40 pounds. And it's pretty cool to see how these guys have taken a slower but more sustainable approach, and it's really paid off. You can read those on his website as well. It's chrisgatesfitness.com. And if you want to apply by next Wednesday, chrisgatesfitness.com/coaching. All right. Josh Newark wants to know, if you opt out but you remain on the team, do you get the bowl swag? I would say it depends on if you go to the bowl. You know, I forget. You didn't go to El Paso last year, right?
I did not.
Did not. I don't remember. I feel like I saw some of the guys on the sideline, like Kalijah Cansey, maybe Brandon Hill. I can't recall, but I would imagine if you travel with the team, you probably get the swag, but I don't know.
I don't know how that works.
You have any thoughts on that? Yeah, we might have to do some investigating. Might have to do some investigative reporting there. Scott Mitchell says the JMA wireless dome somehow doesn't have the same ring to it. I want to see Bub Carrington rise up to ACC play. Otherwise, this team might narrowly miss the tournament. Jim, I've been harboring one of these like corny like saying things that Blake Hinson is this team's most valuable player. Bub Carrington is this team's most important player. That's corny, but do you kind of know what I mean?
I do kind of know what you mean, because I think from this point, and I kind of had this feeling in the preseason, I kind of knew Blake Hinson would be their leading scorer. I kind of had a feeling Ishmael Alega would either be their second leading scorer or be close to it. There are games where Bub Carrington can score 16 points and have 9 assists. There are other games he can have 5 points and 2 assists and not really do much. And that player can't really show up much in ACC play if this team wants to go anywhere. I mean, he needs to look like the projected first round pick. Some people are saying he is, and I agree. I agree with Scott. I mean, he needs to play that way all the time. And he kind of had a couple of those. We talked about the team playing a little lazy around the holidays. I mean, he kind of looked like that to me. But he did have that great game against West Virginia right before all that. So we know he's capable of doing it. He can impact the game in so many ways. But I mean, I think a lot of it is, teams are more aware of him now.
Yeah.
I think one of the last games I covered, I asked Jeff Capel, I was like, why did Bub have a quiet game? He said, on the scouting report after Blake Hinson, it's Bub Carrington. So I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. But he's going to have to answer that challenge, right?
Yeah.
I'm with you. I mean, Blake should continue being in the ACC Player of the Year conversation all the way to the end. I don't necessarily think he's going to win it, but he should be in that conversation all the way to the end. He should be in the conversation for first team all conference all the way to the end of the season. I think what you're going to get, because if they don't get like what what we all expect them to get out of Blake Hinson, they have big problems. Right. You're going to lose a lot of games. So you just sort of assume you're going to get that out of Blake, but then it's like, all right, what's after that? I think there's something Ishmael Leggett gives you, but I think what can truly put this team over the top and win 12, 13, 14 out of these final 19 is Bub Carrington taking that big step. And I think it's been a process. I think that Florida game and that whole stretch in Brooklyn was eye-opening probably for him. I think he's had to learn a lot. I think he has learned a lot. And at the end of the day, I mean, he's a really good player. So I'm pretty confident he's going to continue growing, continue adjusting, continue finding his game, and continue developing and progressing and ultimately succeeding. How much he progresses and develops, how much he's able to succeed, it's probably going to directly correlate with how this team goes. I'm also curious about a fourth scorer. I think you put up a stat today about Guillermo Diaz Graham in games when he has played. Let me see. I'm stalling to allow you to bring it up. He has played at least 20 minutes, I think. Is that what the stat was?
Correct.
Tweeted?
Yeah.
And how many times has he done that? What was his production?
So he's played 20 minutes in 5 games. And in those games, he's averaging 13 points. I know I have to bring up the whole tweet. But he's played in 20 minutes in 4 consecutive games. I mean, he took over the starter's role 2 games ago, but he kind of had those starter minutes for a while. So, yeah, in those games, he's averaging 13 points, 5 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 1.6 blocks, and a steal. So he does a little bit of everything. So, I mean, that was kind of my feeling with Guillermo all along. If he got more minutes, he would do more, that kind of stuff. I mean, he's a pretty good passer. He can get his hands on a lot of, block shots and things like that. So I think him just being on the court is going to bring out more production. And I think because of that, that might solve your, kind of your issues with looking for that fourth scorer.
Yeah, I kind of, as I was thinking about it earlier today, the conclusion I kind of came to, I think, your top 4 scorers are going to include some combination or some order of Hinson, Carrington, Leggett. And then I wouldn't be surprised if it sort of bounces, not necessarily back and forth, but it's either Guillermo or Zach Austin. I think we talked about this last week. I like how Zach Austin has looked coming off the bench. You know what I mean? That whole, he's like a bigger, he's like a taller Nike Sabandi. Well, Nike's best contributions were when he provided that spark off the bench. And I think Zach Austin providing that could be huge. And so, if your top 4 scorers every night are Hinson, Leggett, Carrington, and either Guillermo or Austin, I think that'd be pretty good. And then randomly you'll get like a 11-point game out of Federico, you know what I mean? Or Jorge will make 4 threes in a game or 3 threes and end up with 14 points or 13 points. I wouldn't even be surprised if there's 1 game or 2 games. Well, over under 1.5 games in the next 19 where Will Jeffers is one of the top 4 scorers for Pitt. Over under 1.5.
You're probably taking the under.
I wouldn't be surprised if it could happen once. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened once, but I mean, that's okay. If you have Guillermo, Austin, I can't even put Federico in that group. Jorge, who has more games in the top 4 scoring for Pitt over the next 19 games? Federico, Jorge, or Will Jeffers?
Probably Jorge.
Yeah. Multiple over under 1.5 for him.
See, that's the thing. Because when he's had his big games, he hasn't really done it against a major conference. He's had some good games against Florida Gulf Coast and teams like that. But I've never really seen him just get hot and have a big game against an ACC opponent. So that'll be interesting to see. But I mean, I think at this point, Will Jeffers, we know his offense is limited. I think Federico, his minutes are going to be limited. So I mean, there might be a game where Jorge comes in and hits a couple threes. So I think he has the best chance of the 3.
Yeah, you're probably right. And it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how those guys. I was trying to remember when they were coming out of high school, which of the twins was supposed to be the better prospect? Do you remember? I keep going back and forth on it. Was it Jorge?
I think.
I thought so too, but I couldn't quite remember. And it's just gone back and forth. And sometimes it looks like it's Jorge, and sometimes it looks like it's Guillermo, and I don't know. But anyway, Lawrence Nicoletta wants to know if a player transfers in and is a junior, can that player transfer out the following year? As it stands, and I don't know what's going on with the court case or whatever, but Yeah, a grad transfer can go. A grad transfer can transfer and play whenever they want to play. There was that court. Is anything new with that court case? The last week has been a blur for me. So I don't, if like major things like college football could have completely shut down. Pitt could have shut down its football program, and I might not have noticed over the last 4 days. It's just been that kind of blur. So there was a court case where the court issued a ruling or an injunction or whatever that players could transfer as many times as they want, and they never had to sit out. Right now, if you transfer once, you get it for free, and then if you go again, if you transfer again, you have to sit out a year unless you're going as a grad transfer. Have you heard anything new about that?
I haven't heard anything new. So
okay.
Yeah, you might be able to just transfer every year. I don't know. I don't think that's gonna stick.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know what the policy is, but I mean, for the most part, Lawrence, you can transfer and play right away if you're a grad transfer. So that's the best I can answer your. That's the best I can answer your question. Let's see. TRR says, I watched the condensed Boston College game today, feeling even better about Yarnell as the quarterback moving forward. He throws darts that are pretty accurate. I mean, I can't hate that. I can't hate on how he played over those last couple games. I think we talked about it at the time. We went back and forth on the question of whether Pitt should pursue the starter. I think you said it best earlier tonight when you said, look, just having a third guy to compete with Veer and Yarnell is probably so that, your third quarterback isn't Ty Diefenbach or Julian Duggar. Having a third older player to come in is probably ideal. I don't think it's the worst thing if they end up having to go or getting to go into 2024 with Nate Yarnell as the starter. I'm moderately interested in seeing how that would go. You?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Boston College game was pretty good. He had a couple good throws, and I even thought the Duke game, even though they didn't win, I thought he had some good moments in that game. I thought the touchdown pass to Bub Means, he kind of evaded the rush on the run, hit Bub Means in the back of the corner. We didn't see many throws from a Pitt quarterback last year, showing that. So I think there's something to work with. And I think, all along, I think they probably realized it's like, hey, Nate probably could have done this for us more than 2 games, but, they waited a little too long on that.
They sure did. And I mean, I, at the beginning of the season, would not have said, I think Nate Yarnell is probably their best quarterback, but at the same time, I was not watching practice all those times. So, maybe somebody who was watching practice might have known that. Big Steve says, you know what grinds my gears? The Washington-Texas game being an 8:45 p.m. kickoff on a work night. I mean, ESPN listed as 9 o'clock. So, what Louisville USC is on right now, right? That's at 8 o'clock. The Holiday Bowl, which I referenced as a game that I didn't care about, but it's on right now. So maybe I'll find it and put it on. Because I don't know what the score is. The Holiday Bowl, Louisville, USC, and San Diego, and then the Texas Bowl, A&M, Oklahoma State at 9 o'clock. I mean, it is a little bit late on a Wednesday night, but then tomorrow you have an 11 a.m. game. You have the Fenway Bowl. You gonna watch the Fenway Bowl tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll probably watch it. I think I'm more inclined to just watch a random afternoon football game than maybe turning on this USC game. But I mean, to Big Steve's point, I mean, I kind of agree. I think sometimes, and not just the NCAA, like all major sports do this, like they put their championship games on so late. And it's like, sometimes like little kids, the guys that like love watching these sports the most, they have to go to bed. I mean, you have like the NCAA basketball national championship. That's always like Monday at 9:30 at night. I mean, it's like it kind of stinks for like if you're a little kid, you watch March Madness all month, and it's like, sorry, you have school tomorrow, dude. Like you can't watch the game, and like I get that. I mean, some of these championship games do start too late.
Yeah, what game was Big Steve talking about? Washington, Texas. When is that game?
Is that Monday?
Oh yeah, right.
That's the playoff game.
Yeah. Oh, Monday. Oh, so that is 8:45. My mistake. I was glancing through it. I thought he was talking about a game tonight. No, I'm totally with you. I hate those weeknight late games. I mean, especially playoff games, big games, important games. It's a pain in the butt. Let's see. Golfers Ben and Papa says my bowl game viewing has waned because Pitt is not in a bowl. I will watch the semis. Yeah, We were kind of talking about that a little bit earlier too. Wolf HD says, I feel like bowl games lost their luster with all the opt-outs and the constant discussion about the playoffs. I just don't feel like watching 2 non-playoff teams starting not ready backups. Yeah, that's it's hard to get completely excited about it. But then again, I mean, I don't know. I think there are a few key players, like we talked about, like Ohio State, you know what I mean? Players that you would want to see there, like that are opting out, but is that keeping me away from watching it or not? I don't know. I might just watch it because I might not have, I might have something better to do. Tommy Graham says that Syracuse has a big center, 7'3" or 7'4" guy. That's going to be an interesting challenge. I mean, when you talk about Guillermo Diaz Graham earlier, you talk about, his, either his defense or on offense, what he does. I mean, it's going to be a challenge when he runs into guys with size, either like length like that or guys who are bigger who can kind of muscle him around. And, I'd be interested. So you had that stat about 5 games where he's played 20 minutes. Do you have what those 5 games were?
Well, the past 4
You said the
games,
last 4, and then what? One of the tournament games last year?
No, earlier in the year.
Oh, was it?
He came off the bench and had like maybe Binghamton.
Oh, it wasn't even last season.
No,
it was just 5 games. Okay, so 5 games this year. So not exactly a high level of competition that he's been putting that up against. So it'll be interesting to see what he does when he's got some real competition. Paul Sebastian wants to know. Oh, go ahead.
I did want to say that the 7'4" guy he's referencing is Naeem McLeod, who played for Florida State last year. In 2 games against Pitt, he had a total of 4 points.
Oh, how many rebounds? You have that?
Not many.
Okay.
4 rebounds in the one game, 0 in the other. So yeah, it's not like Pitt hasn't seen him before. He played for Florida State last year.
Oh, okay. Paul Sebastian wants to know, what's the ETA on the volleyball wrestling auxiliary building next to the arena? What do you expect this to do for the overall athletic department in sports? I don't know. They're still a ways off. I mean, 2025.
Yeah, it's not ready. I think next season's the last year Fitzgerald Fieldhouse. I could be wrong.
Like 2024, 25 school year, you mean?
Yeah, like that'll be like the last year of the Fitzgerald, I think.
Would you move the bulk of the volleyball schedule to the Peterson Event Center if the schedule, as long as you don't have conflicts? I mean, is there enough interest around that, or do you just need to pick and choose key games like they did this past year?
I think you kind of pick and choose key games, but I mean, I think that's a sport that's growing. I think, in Pittsburgh to have, 8,000 people come out for a volleyball game. And what did ESPN say? That was the most watched Final Four ever for volleyball. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think it's cool right now that the sport's growing, and I think it's a good thing for Pitt that as the sport's growing, they're one of the biggest name brands in the sport. So, yeah, I mean, I think the team even apparently the team likes playing at Fitzgerald. It's just what they're used to. Whatever court they use at the Peterson's not the same thing. It's not what they're used to. So yeah. I don't know, but I mean, I think just from a crowd standpoint, yeah, I mean, it's cool to kind of save the special games against Louisville or NC State for, the Peterson.
Yeah. I wonder how the players feel about going to the Peterson Event Center, because I mean, it's home, it's a home game, and you can practice there probably, if you want to get some extra time in there, you probably can, but it's not actually home. You know what I mean? Like, it's not exactly how you always do things at home. So I wonder if it's good, but it's not good. You know what I mean? It's good, but prefer to stay in the field house. I don't know. Tommy Graham says, you guys, you don't believe in Jaylen Lowe. I think once he finds a mid-range shot, it's over. And I actually meant to mention him as another one of those guys who could sneak into that top 4. It seems like his minutes fall off in the second half. And not every game, but it's happened a lot. You know what I mean? Particularly in these games where they're close. They just don't end up rotating the guards all that much. So he's got to get consistent minutes in the second half for him to creep up into that top 4 scoring on a random basis or an occasional basis. Well, let's throw him in there. So Federico, Jorge, Will Jeffress, Jaylen Lowe, who has the most appearances in the top 4 scoring over the next 19 games. Does Lowe change that at all? I forget. You said Jorge. Do
Yeah,
you just stick with Jorge?
I could see Lowe. No, I might go with Jaylen Lowe. It's not that I don't believe in him, Tommy Graham's. I do think he's a good player. Obviously, his shot is not the greatest right now, but I think over the past couple games, I mean, he's shown a lot of great point guard qualities. But it's just so hard for him to break in because, like you said, they don't substitute. And when you have a point guard like Bob Carrington, it's just hard to take them off the court. I know they can coexist and play with each other, but I think for the most part, I mean, you kind of just want Carrington and Leggett out there in the second half, and that just kind of cuts into Lowe's production.
Yeah, maybe if you have a game where like those guys get into foul trouble in the first half, they pick up 2 quick fouls early or something like that, then he'll get 17 minutes and a half or something, and then he could potentially do it. But like he has to, show himself to be a reliable option, right? To either play with Carrington and Leggett, which maybe could happen a little bit more. I think it'd be an interesting lineup look, and they haven't done it that much. Or to, show himself to be a viable option to replace one of those guys and let those guys get some extra reps. I don't think he's ever going to get more minutes than those guys this season, but I could see him getting enough. And yeah, if he knocks down a few shots, I think he's got the ability. I think he can be a good scorer. He just, has to, he has to get more opportunities, and he's got to earn those, I think. Josh Newark says, why build a volleyball arena if you play more games in the future at the Pete? Well, I'm just talking about playing more games in the future at the Peterson Event Center until the new arena gets built. Do you remember what the capacity is for the new arena? Is it like 3,500 or
something like that?
4,000, somewhere around there. So,
I mean, they still need the building. I mean, even
yeah.
it's not just a volleyball arena; it's wrestling too. I mean, it's
and like workout facilities and rehab and practice facilities and a lot of things that I think will benefit those programs quite a bit. I was just thinking about this volleyball, unprecedented, well, not necessarily unprecedented success. I mean, it was their 3rd straight Final Four. Women's soccer, unprecedented success. Do you see another program that's going to, and in our last minute or two here, do you see another program that's going to kind of step into that in the next year? And 2, do you think those programs will continue it? Looks like volleyball is bringing, if not everybody back. I know they lost folk hero Cat Flood to the transfer portal, but it looks like they're bringing almost everybody back and and reloading. And I don't know the soccer situation, but I sort of feel like those programs are both in pretty good footing going forward, don't you?
I do, and I think it starts with the coaches. I mean, Dan Fisher's the best coach at Pitt, and he has been for a while. And I mean, when they hired Randy Waldrum, I mean, he's a guy that has had a ton of success. I mean, they went out and hired a good coach, and he's doing what a good coach is supposed to do, and he's building a program. So yeah, I mean, I think there's staying power for both. But as for like another program up and coming, I don't know what the next one's going to be. I don't know what that next what's going to break through next. I mean, Pitt wrestling is always like a sport where you want them to be a little bit better than they are, just because wrestling's such a big deal in the state, and Penn State's so great at wrestling, and a lot of the Big Ten teams. It's like Pitt's good at wrestling. They're always like top 20. They never seem to break into the top 10 though.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I wonder if that one could really catch on. I keep wondering if like baseball is going to, it just feels so tough for a northern team to get that kind of traction. I don't know. It's just it's tough. It's probably, I mean, volleyball and women's soccer. I guess men's soccer. The men's soccer is heading in the right direction. I mean, we could probably.
I think they're just good. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Josh Newark mentions women's lacrosse. That's another one that I think is tough to crack into. As a northern team, and then starting up from nothing. I think they had some impressive wins their first year. Last year didn't go so well, but I think they're getting some local recruits, and that'll be another. That's a team. You talk about facilities. They were supposed to have a lacrosse field where the OC lot is. Do you remember this? This was one of the original plans of the Victory Heights thing. It was going to be this multi-area complex, and it was going to include a lacrosse field where the OC lot is. The OC lot's still there. We park in it for basketball games, Jim, and the lacrosse team plays at Highmark Stadium. So they got kind of screwed. Not sure if anything will happen with that. But to be fair, Pitt eliminated a women's tennis program that had no actual facilities, and they brought in and created a lacrosse program that has no facility. Well, at least they have a practice facility somewhere on campus. But anyway, we're hitting all the important topics here at the end of the hour. But all right, any big plans for New Year's Eve, Jimbo?
I am actually. It's been the year of weddings for me. I'm in a wedding one more time. So
nice. Where a destination wedding? Where are you going? Aruba?
No, it's in Pittsburgh.
Oh, it's pretty close. All right. Well, enjoy that. Have fun. Thanks to everybody who was in the comments tonight. It was a lot of fun to get in these comments and questions. People are now connecting the canceled lacrosse stadium to Pitt Stadium, so that's how you know it's time for us to sign off. Thanks everybody for the comments and questions tonight. It was a lot of fun. Make sure you like this video and subscribe. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We'll, of course, have Morning Pitt episodes tomorrow and Friday. But after that, have a great New Year's. And we'll be back next Wednesday night at 8 o'clock for another live show. Oh, we have a post-game show on Saturday after the basketball game. So don't forget that right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Thanks a lot for tuning in tonight. We will talk to you on Saturday for the live show and next week for the live stream and Morning Pits in between and all that stuff. So have a good New Year's, and we will talk to you soon.